taste doesn't really come into play at night, per se. I mean, you're not going to taste something and then induce sleep. The reason I bring it up is part of the five senses to change or set up for a good sleep environment is that with shift work and people working 50 to 60 hours a week, most people will get home 6 or 7 p.m. and still have things to do at home, and then finally settle down. Some unfortunate folks don't get a chance to eat lunch properly, and they'll be hungry on the way home, thinking nothing about the cupboard. And before you know it, a very large meal will be eaten at 7, 8 o'clock at night, resulting in a full belly, and then, which is okay. However, going to sleep in an hour with a full belly, if you think about your stomach being full and the esophagus up here, standing upright, it's okay to have a full belly. When you lie flat, the stomach now has to try to keep all the acid and food in from that large meal to keep it from rolling into the esophagus. And this is how most of us start our problems with reflux. Anybody that has severe reflux usually gets, I've had some patients, they get to the point where they're sleeping and right in the middle of the night they'll wake up and have the urge to either cough or vomit and or just have burning in the chest. That's usually because of a large meal being taken at nighttime. Ayurveda suggests that's the science of life, very ancient way of practicing good health in India. Yoga is part of Ayurveda, so is meditation, but anyway, Ayurveda says the largest meal should be lunchtime. That's when all the energy of the digestive tract is at its maximum. It also works, which is usually about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It'll also work from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., but it won't be built, it's going to interfere with sleep, and it's not supposed to be having to digest complex foods at that point in time. So, having a large meal at the end of the day, not so good. Having alcohol with a large meal, some folks had questions about using a glass of wine at night because of its antioxidant effects for the red grape, and no question, wine does help, but if you are having problems with reflux, acid, gastritis, ulcers, you really should be avoiding tobacco and alcohol and caffeine altogether. Taking a wine at night also eventually, I mean, it works as a depressant at first, but can be a stimulant sooner or later. So taking that wine will make you hyperstimulant and make it difficult to get into the ritual of slow brainwave relaxation and proper sleep and dreaming. So backing off on a large meal at dinner time, I'm not saying starve, but I think decreasing the volume would be helpful. I had mentioned in the Whole Foods lecture in Schaumburg, Whole Foods Market in Schaumburg, that if you have to have a large meal, say you're feasting or there's a festive, like a birthday party, if you have to have a large meal, try to, and it's a lot of processed food, food that's got a high glycemic index, it gets into the bloodstream, is released quickly into sugar, to prevent that cascade of insulin being secreted by the pancreas at high volume. It's called insulin dumping, and then getting hypoglycemic in about an hour, then having cortisol, because when the body senses that there's no sugar from doing an insulin dump, it'll say that you're now starving, and you'll secrete cortisol from your adrenal glands. That's called the reflex cortisol dump, and the adrenal glands will just dump a massive amount of cortisol into the bloodstream, and that's usually a fight or flight situation, so you wind up waking up in the middle of the night. Or you just come out into, instead of slow brainwave sleep, you might be asleep, but the brainwaves will start to fire off at daytime speed, like they're called beta waves. So any kind of sound, a full bladder, a light may make it easier with beta wave or hyperstimulation in the middle of the night. It'll make it easier for you to wake up. So it'll break that rhythm of 6 to 7 hours or 8 to 10 hours that you're supposed to get. So a trick would be taking a large meal and throwing fiber or fat into the meal to make it a lower release in the stomach. And that's with the concept of glycemic load. If you slow down the release, the pancreas and the adrenals work better and don't secrete as much. Hi. Pancreas and the adrenals don't secrete as much into the bloodstream, so you don't have the insulin dump or the cortisol dump. And then just the basics of a large meal with causing reflux. That's a bad habit. So changing food and the way you eat food. If you can't have, if you don't have enough time to eat a proper lunch, then bring some snacks with you for the ride home. Most people will travel about half an hour. If you have a bag of nuts in the car or a fruit of some sort, it'll satiate that hunger response that you get on the way to going home, and you won't have to dig in and attack your food when you get home or search the cupboard, because if you've already initiated the starvation mode, hormones, by the time you get home it'll be too late. Your decision making will be off, and you'll pick the foods that are wrong for you, which are usually processed. There's no question processed food makes you feel, because it gets released into the bloodstream so fast, makes you feel so good. But usually that hormone will go away after a while, and then you'll search for something else. So choose your meals wisely, and you'll be healthier overall, especially if you're trying to lose weight, lower sugar, or fight cholesterol problems.